Niarchos. My name is Koray Durak. I'm teaching Byzantine and early Islamic history at the Department of History at Boğaziçi University, whose name I'm sure you've been hearing these days for unfortunate reasons. I'm working on Byzantine Islamic trade in the early Middle Ages and formation of identities in the context of Byzantine Islamic relations and exchanges between Byzantine and Islamic pharmacology. Well, I will start with the short bio of Buket Kitapçı Bayrı. I feel honored to introduce her. She received her PhD in 2010 in the co-tutelle, in the joint PhD program of the University of Paris, Panthéon-Sorbonne, and Boğaziçi University. And she taught courses on the history of Byzantine Constantinople at Bilgi University in Istanbul. And she is a senior fellow at Koç University, Stavros Niarchos Foundation, Late Antique and Byzantine Studies Center, Gabam in Istanbul. Her research interests include late Byzantine, early Ottoman social and cultural history, late medieval cultural transformations in the Eastern Mediterranean, hagiography, ethics, and of course, identity and spatial studies. I say, of course, you understand why when we listen to her. Among many others, especially I remember the perception of Byzantium in modern Turkish popular culture. And she has many publications in these fields I have just described, but I will just quote one to give you an example. Her article entitled Homo Byzantinus in late medieval Turkish Muslim warrior epics is published in Revue des Études Byzantines in 2019. Today, she will introduce her book called The Warriors, Martyrs, and Dervishes, Moving Frontiers and Shifting Identities in the Land of Rome. In her book, she examines late medieval Turkish epics and Byzantine neo-martyr accounts to throw light on the important issues of identities, such as identities of warriors, dervishes, and martyrs, especially the shifting, malleable nature of these identities, and how these identities formed, reformed, and were themselves formed and reformed by the concepts of space, time, border, and liminality. Her book will be a very useful and refreshing approach to be read, not only by the scholars of medieval identities and cultural histories, but also by the Byzantinists of neo-martyrdom accounts, as well as scholars of Seljuk and Ottoman medieval Anatolia. So the floor is yours, Buket. Thank you.
Thank you, Koray, for this introduction. And I'd like to thank Petros and all the team of the first Edinburgh Online Byzantine Book Festival for having me, giving me this opportunity to present my book. Let me share my screen first, if I can. Sorry, I'm trying to share, but okay. Let's see if can we share it. Can you see the shared screen? No?
No.
Okay. Okay, we tried during the... Sorry. Okay, then let me not share the screen and not use my time for trying. So, warriors, martyrs, and dervishes, moving frontiers, shifting identities in the land of Rome, is an attempt to understand one of the last chapters in the history of cultural change in medieval Mediterranean basin, which was triggered by the arrival, conquest, and settlement of Turkish Muslim groups from the east at the end of the 11th century, which ultimately resulted in the Byzantine Empire's political demise in the 15th century. The book aims to understand the possible changes in the self-identity of the Byzantines, who began to share the same territory, the land of Rome or Rum, with the Muslim newcomers, rulers, and elites. It compares the testimonies of different groups who all constructed their own political histories and interpretations of the events. The testimonies which are examined in the book are basically the Muslim medieval warrior epics written in Turkish and the late Byzantine martyrdom narratives written in Greek, as well as some Turkish dervish lives. The sources are well known, especially to the students of the medieval Muslim Anatolia and the Ottoman history. The scholars in general have approached the aforementioned cultural change and the sources in question through or arriving at the paradigm of Muslim-Christian or sedentary nomad antagonisms. While discussing these paradigms, in order to understand the reasons behind the success of military advancement of these newcomers, the Holy War, in other words, the religious zeal against Christians, are examined. The presence of Christians, especially the Byzantines within these Muslim groups, on the other hand, led some scholars to question the limits and content of the zeal on the frontiers. Some argued about pure pragmatism and thirst for plunder, raid, and material gain behind the newcomers' success. In terms of nomadism, the scholars considered these newcomers as basically being nomads. Therefore, the transformation was considered to be a contest between nomadic Turkish Muslim newcomers versus settled urban Byzantines. The third important aspect considered by the scholars, especially by the Ottomanists and the scholars of the Muslim medieval Anatolia, is the Romanization of the Muslim political rulers and elites who arrived and conquered Asia Minor. This Romanization, however, was not the integration of these groups into the Byzantine Roman realm. What is meant by Romanization by these scholars is the self-identification of the Muslim rulers and the elites as Roman. The ongoing debate on Roman identity by the scholars of the Byzantine history and the one by the scholars of the late medieval Muslim Anatolia, however, have never been put together. The scholars of Byzantium, on the other hand, have examined in majority the changes in the Byzantine identity due to the political presence of the Latins on the Byzantine territory after the Fourth Crusade. At the background of all these studies, the book approaches to these sources in the following manners. Rather than using these sources to validate or contradict the theories of Islamization, nomadization, or Romanization, these literary sources are read and analyzed in their own literary dynamic with a narrative specialization strategy. A vertical reading searching for author, commissioner, and audience, and a horizontal reading by analyzing the movements of the characters in, out, and on the borders of the land of Rome and of the cities. At the same time, as a student of the Byzantine history, my focus was the Byzantines. In other words, the Romans, Rome in the text. The common theme in all these sources is the land of Rome, which forms the story world of all the narratives. The book examines the definition of the land of Rome, its political, social, and cultural frontiers, as well as the representation of us and the others in relation with this special element. After examining the narratives in an aforementioned manner, the book proposes the following conclusions. In the entangled stories examined, a great value is attached to the land of Rome as a geopolitical, social, and cultural space. The ultimate desire of the heroes of the Turkish Muslim epics is to conquer Rome in order to transform and convert its landscape and its people with the ultimate goal of bringing this territory and its people into the realm of Islam. In these sources, however, becoming one of us does not necessarily require religious conversion. Recognizing the political authority of the epic hero, political loyalty to his cause, or submission to his military or spiritual leadership, all allowed for the inclusion of the other, who is almost identified as Roman, Rome, into the category of us, without necessarily converting to Islam. The conversion is perceived as a political act, and religious conversion is presented in the epics as an eventual result of the political conversion. As long as the epic heroes expanded territories under their political authority, group formation based largely on political conversion is quite inclusive. Once newcomers cross the geographical and social frontiers and carve out a space for themselves, new boundaries are established to separate us from them. These new boundaries are sometimes created through adherence to social norms, such as food consumption and commensality. As the land of Rome gradually becomes a part of Muslim governed territory, Roman identification is appropriated by the Turkish Muslim hero. While the territory, the land of Rome, gradually defines Turkish Muslims in the epics and some dervish vita, in the late Byzantine martyria, the Christians defined territory. All the martyrdom stories reflect the shrinking of the geopolitical frontiers of the Byzantine Empire. In these circumstances, one can perceive the willingness of the Byzantine elites in Constantinople, reimagining and reformulating a communal identity. The heroes of the Byzantine martyrdom narratives, the representatives of the Byzantine ecumenical community, are not depicted as Romans, but as Christians. Being Christian, however, was formulated in a highly exclusive manner. The Latins are heretics, and the Lithuanian martyrs are not yet deemed worthy of being called Christians. It was not only a matter of religion, but a highly political issue as well, that was closely related to a geographical marker. Written or commissioned primarily by the civil or ecclesiastical elite of Constantinople, the late Byzantine martyria reflect the continuous efforts and the willingness of this elite to construct a common identity within the Christian Roman ecumene, in part by trying to keep the three essential actors, the Byzantine emperor, the Byzantine patriarch, and Constantinople at the center. Being Christian incorporated notions such as fatherland and home, family and household, patris and genos, and political elements, meaning loyalty to the Byzantine emperor and to the Byzantine patriarch in Constantinople. The Christian Roman ecumene represents a vast space in which there are Christian communities, churches, and saints' relics, in other words, places over which the Byzantine emperor once ruled. A nuanced vertical reading involving analysis of the patron-author-reader relationship, literary and historical considerations, and intertextual allusions, along with a horizontal reading focusing on the movements, attitudes, actions, and self-identification of the characters of the Turkish Muslim epics, late Byzantine martyria, and the dervish vitas, reflect that as the frontiers of the land of Rome moved, imagined communities come to be attached to imagined places, as some of the displaced created new homelands and others clustered around remembered or imagined homelands, places, and communities. A dialectic identity formation takes place whereby the newcomers transform the physical, social, and cultural space in an inclusive manner as they themselves are transformed, and the natives reformulate their identity in a vast and vaguely defined space in a very highly exclusive fashion. Thank you.